Welcome back viewers, ladies, gentlemen, non-binaries and anyone with ears or other sound detection organs. Hope you enjoy. We are continuing with Going Native, written by Uncle Sealing. Going Native, Chapter 36. Controller Celia, it's time we had a talk. Celia Merrick was expecting this, but that didn't mean she was ready for it. Considering that she was face down on a hospital bed with her entire ass and back exposed, both wrists handcuffed to the rails, it gave the impression that she was ready for something entirely different. Nearly everything on her back between asshole and ribs had suffered some amount of trauma, varying from a bruise to openly flayed skin, the after effects of a point-blank shot from a pistol that she had a shop illegally modify for a better stun experience. After 2 days of laying like this, receiving the bare minimum of medical treatment, Celia was furious. I demand you release me. Holding me like this is against the law and the interior will not look well on you for your actions. From her undignified position on the bed, Celia could not see the door or really much of anything except a wall and the bed in front of her. The interior won't look well on me. A chair dragged into view and a young shill woman sat down in front of her. Average build in a long dark coat, white hair pulled back into a ponytail. Younger than Celia, of course. Probably some noble punk kid. A badge came out and... Well shit. My name is Jelsi Chelza, Inspector for the Interior. Who, exactly, are you? House Chelza. Celia could barely hear the quaver in her voice. I demand a neutral arbiter. Since I am investigating criminal acts committed by House Chelza, any information you collect will be tainted with bias. Another voice cut in behind her. I am here to act as witness. I also have some questions to ask you concerning your actions towards one Samuel Forsyth Painter. Celia had to drag her face into the pillow in a very undignified manner to be able to look to her other side, bringing her eye to eye with a furious Colonel Eitel. She started to speak, but Eitel raised a hand. Before we begin, Celia, I want you to understand where we stand. I have taken statements from Lieutenant Marion, Samuel Forsyth Painter, and his spouse. I have also listened to the audio logs of his therapy sessions. I have investigators combing through every past interaction with a male you have ever had, and the information I have been learning has not painted you in a very favorable light. I also have statements from several doctors and nurses that you were loudly screaming that you were going to shoot a disabled, crippled human male to try to extract information from a witness. I have records showing very clearly how you were stealing money and equipment from the military and funneling it to private business for personal gain. I have audio recordings of you attempting to blackmail a noble house. I am taking a very personal interest in this, and so are a lot of other people with names that start with titles like governess. I want you to understand this very clearly, Celia, when you leave this hospital, you are going to be leaving in chains. You are going to either a prison labor camp or to a firing squad. That is your future, and there is no changing it. If you try to leave this room, you will be shot. The guards will not try to stop you or catch you, they have been ordered to simply shoot you on sight. The hospital staff didn't even put up a fuss, apparently howling that you were going to shoot one of their favorite patients did not earn you any friends. If anybody unauthorized tries to enter this room, they will be shot, after which you will be shot for colluding with them in an attempt to escape. Is all of this clear? Lying on her stomach, trying to hold her head up, Celia's tears ran easily down her face, gravity stealing the last bit of dignity from her as she nodded. Eitel shook her head in the negative. No, Celia. We're going to hear you say it. Is that clear? Celia's yes sounded more like a sob. Then let us begin. What's with the sunglasses? Ellery looked up to see her co-commander Abreu, standing at the door to the hospital room. She quickly scrambled from the chair to her feet and pulled the sunglasses off. Sorry, forgot I had them on. Bree glanced around the room. No need to be so formal, I'm not your boss anymore. Where's the human? I wanted to meet the guy who managed to tame the mighty Elora Helium. Elora looked at Bree in confusion. The other Shilvati was shorter than Elora but powerfully muscled and impressively endowed, barely fitting in her uniform. Her spiky black hair made up for the height difference between the two. Stace is in physical therapy. What do you mean you're not my boss? You're getting promoted and transferred. You know a place called the Painter Observatory. When Elora nodded, Bree continued. Apparently they want you as facility security coordinator. Detached duty, comes with a bump to lieutenant. You made it to the big leagues, kid. Elora was dumbstruck for a moment, taking it in. A promotion and being transferred to where Ian was living. She had declined promotions a few times over the years so she could keep running counter-terrorism ops, but now that she had her boyfriends to think about, this was the perfect time. While she considered this, a nurse entered, pushing a wheelchair with a very exhausted-looking Stace in it. Oh, so this is the guy, huh? Bree leaned over so she was mere centimeters from the human's face, taking a good look at his unkempt hair, short beard, and unmatched eyes. He's not too bad looking. You could have done a lot worse, Elora. Stace pulled his head to the side and tried to turn away, but he couldn't do much while in the wheelchair. The nurse took care of it by putting a hand on Bree's forehead and shoving her back. Hey, what's the problem? I just wanted to take a look. You being incredibly rude is the problem, the nurse replied, her words full of venom. How would you like it if someone did that to you? That depends, are they hot? Please stop fighting over me. It makes me feel like a thing. Stace's voice was quiet but it pulled everyone up short. I would rather feel like a person. Bree stepped back after that, head down in shame, and let Elora and the nurse get Stace transferred back into the bed and hooked up to his various medical machines. As the nurse left with the wheelchair, Bree looked at the human laying there, realizing just how poorly off he was. No wonder he felt that way. Sorry. I shouldn't have acted like that. She turned to Elora. I should go. I've made a cunt of myself. No, you should stay. You are Elora's friend. Stace smiled up at her from the bed, though he still wouldn't look her in the face. Tell me some stories about her. Bree raised a hand and rubbed one of her tusks awkwardly. I had actually been hoping to take her out drinking. Elora just got promoted and it's tradition to get her shit-faced. Bree looked almost shy, uncomfortable with the situation. Is it okay if I borrow her for a few hours? I couldn't do that, I have to be here for Stace. I promised him I wouldn't leave him alone. No, Stace's voice was firm. You are going to go out and have a good time. Don't be I will be fine. You celebrate, and when you get back you tell me about it. He leaned over as far as he could, managing to snag his omnipod from the table. He held it out to Bree with one trembling hand. Add yourself to my pad. I don't know how to do it. Send me pictures. Bree's grin was toothy and lecherous. Oh, I'm sure I can do that. She updated Stace's pad, handed it back, then hooked Elora's elbow in her own and started to drag the other woman off. Television, somehow, hadn't changed in the last decade. It was still mind-numbing. Despite growing up during the height of the digital age, Stace never really understood technology on a visceral level. If he couldn't build it or fix it himself, at least in principle, it just didn't seem real to him. TV felt the same way, and so did his new omnipod. It was all just bizarre. Still, it was something to do to give his brain a break. Eustace Grant. Stace looked up to find her, Are you Eustace Grant? The young man was holding an omnipod, scrolling with one finger. His skin was a pale grey and smooth, his whole body small and lithe, perhaps a couple inches shorter than Iang. His eyes were dark, but not the black of Shilvati eyes. Instead, the entire eye aside from the pupil was a dark green, as if his irises filled the entire orb. It was only then that Stace realized that he was staring. Sorry. Yes, I am, yes. His whole face felt hot. I am sorry. Staring is rude. I was just. The young man smiled, showing off clean white teeth with definite points. It's okay, I understand. Here, I'll make it fair. He took a moment to very obviously give Stace an exaggerated once-over, which only made him blush harder. You can call me a skill. I've been retained by House Chilser to be your private nurse and help take care of you day to day. A skill consulted his pad. I am supposed to speak to Ellora Helium so she can authorize the paperwork. Ellora is out. A friend came to visit. She got promoted so they are out, getting shit-faced. Ha! A skill stood there, suddenly looking awkward. Well, shit. I can't check your chart or anything without getting the paperwork signed first. He let out a sigh. Stace gestured to the chair. Sit. We can talk too. Make the clock go faster. A skill pulled off his jacket, hung it on a peg on the wall, then slumped into the chair with a groan. Ooh, this is nice. I've been traveling all day. Was not looking forward to starting a shift on top of that. He glanced at Stace and the human could see a small twinge of guilt on the grey face. You don't mind, do you? No, I don't mind. I am just confused. Why are you here? Stace noticed the panicked look on a skill's face and held up a hand. I do not speak Shil well. Do not know many words. You will have to explain. I am sorry. Okay. I'm a nurse. You know what that is? Stace nodded. You are a nurse but you work for, not the hospital. Right. I was hired by House Chilser. House is, rich important people. Yes. Those pointed teeth came out again in a grin as a skill choked back a laugh. That's a pretty fair description of the nobility, yeah. I met a woman named Chilser. Why did Gel hire you? I have nurses here. The young man shrugged. Who knows why nobles do what they do? I'm just happy to have snagged a job that let me go out and see new places, you know. My mom's wanted me to stay home but there's a whole galaxy out here. Stace nodded. He was having some trouble following the young man's fast speech but the challenge was refreshing. That's why I went to second school. Had to get away from home and see the world. Oh. A skill leaned forward interestedly. What did you study? I don't know the word for it. Animal and plant stuff. Not having the vocabulary was frustrating, but Stace was feeling reinvigorated by the conversation. A skill was the first person aside from Ellora in days who hadn't spoken to him like he was 6 years old, who hadn't talked at him instead of to him. It was taking all of his concentration to understand the dialogue, but that's what it was. A dialogue. The Shil word is biology. Here. A skill grabbed one of Stace's pieces of scrap paper and wrote out the Shil runes. Stace found his eyes following not the writing but the patches of dark, rougher skin on a skill's arms. He had first taken them for tattoos but now he could tell that they were a part of the young man's skin. He had scales. So you've never seen a Helcom before, I take it. Stace's eyes snapped back to a skill's face and he could feel his ears burning in embarrassment at the young grey man's huge grin. Sorry. I didn't know. Stace took a moment to try to put a sentence together. I thought humans were alone until a few months ago. A lot has changed for me. Hard not to get caught up in it sometimes. That made Eskel's smile fade. I heard a little bit about that. Don't worry about staring. You're the first human I've ever met. I'm trying not to stare too. Stace took a look down at himself. I'm not much to look at. Especially now. Thankfully, the awkward silence didn't last long. A haggard-looking interior agent knocked politely at the door frame, then walked it. Jill. Stace clung to the shiny new change of topic. It is good to see you. Eskel flung himself to his feet and tried to straighten his shirt unobtrusively. Hello, Stace. Has everyone been nice to you? Investigator Jill Seychells's voice was syrupy sweet as came up to the bed and offered Stace a fist bump. He couldn't quite manage to look her in the face, but he managed to return the gesture. Everyone is very nice. I just made a new friend. Stace waved at Eskel. Jill, this is Eskel. Eskel, this is Inspector Jill Seychelles. It's a pleasure to meet you. Eskel was clearly nervous and uncomfortable. Stace regretted putting him on the spot like that, but what else could he do? Yes. The nurse my brother hired. Jill smiled, but her eyes were hard. Mind telling me why your patient seems to be unable to look at me? Eskel looked at Stace, then glanced around the room. It was clear he was caught off guard, but before Stace could come to his rescue, the young man steeled himself and started talking. It's common for patients with recent transplants or trauma to have trouble associating with things that remind them of the changes to their body, especially if it has something to do with the face. I would surmise that Stace is uncomfortable looking at Shilvati eyes now that he, has one. Eskel picked up a pair of sunglasses from the table and offered them to Jill Sy. It should be temporary. Jill Sy made a show of wiping off the sunglasses with a handkerchief, then slipped them on. Is this better, Stace? Much better, thank you. I am sorry. Stace made a point of looking Jill Sy in the face. You look very tired. What is wrong? Nothing is wrong. Jill Sy frowned. You remember that lady who threatened you and your friend? Of course. She was being very rude. Stace grinned and Jill Sy let out a small bark of a laugh. I just spent the last couple of hours interrogating her. Interrogating? Stace didn't know the word, but he could guess. Still, it was better to have confirmation. Asking her questions. Jill Sy turned at Eskel's sudden movement and Stace watched as the young man wrote interrogate in Shill under biology on the sheet of paper. After Jill Sy gave him a head tilt, Eskel's face darkened from a slate to almost charcoal. Just helping with vocabulary. That earned him a nod and a genuine smile, and Eskel relaxed visibly. I have to get back to that lady in a few minutes, but I needed a break. Since I'm already at the hospital, why not visit my favorite human? Jill Sy leaned over and ruffled Stace's hair. It was a little patronizing, but honestly, compared to the gross feeling of being attached to a bunch of tubes and wires, getting some human, person contact felt good. Almost unconsciously, his head leaned subtly into her hand. Stace considered. It had been 2 days since the incident, and he had expected Celia to have been moved to another location by now. Did I hurt her bad? Jill Sy smiled. You did, but it was her fault. She had, how do I explain this? She changed her gun so not kill was very close to kill. You did not know that. She held her arm up vertically, then moved it about 10 degrees away from vertical. Like this. That was troubling. I did not mean to. I just wanted. The words just wouldn't come. He was starting to see patterns. Whenever he was upset or emotional, talking got harder. The words just piled up in the back of his throat. I know. It's all right. Jelsi let out a sigh. I really should get back to it. I just wanted to say hi. She turned towards Eskel. Take good care of Stace, all right? He's a good person. Yes, of course. As soon as Jelsi was out the door, Eskel visibly relaxed, slumping back into the chair and turning towards Stace. I have 2 questions for you. Okay. First question, why was that interior agent talking to you like you're her 3-year-old nephew? I don't know. I think. Stace took a moment to put together a sentence that wasn't outright insulting to Jelsi. I think she thinks my brain is broken. Well, that's stupid. Second question, did you shoot somebody? Yep. Eskel's face went from slate grey to the color of dirty water in shock. Want to hear the story? Well, I don't know, doesn't sound that int. Of course I want to hear the story. Elora was drunk. She was just sober enough to realize that she had really overdone it. She hadn't meant to, but after the months living in the woods her tolerance was not at all what it used to be. She was also a bit in over her head. She realized that when her knees hit the back of the bed and she ended up flat on her back with a brie on top, long shilvati tongue making its way up Elora's throat and along the line of her jaw. A brie and Elora had always flirted a bit. Elora's pod was noted for their various team-building exercises, but being the boss Abri was always on the outside. Now that Elora was transferring out, Abri had apparently decided to make her move. Elora was hot, horny, and well lubricated thanks to the alcohol, but she couldn't quite get in the mood. She was worried about Stace. A beep brought Elora's full attention back to the task at hand and she realized that Abri had her pad out. Did you just take a picture of us making out? I told your friend that I would send him pictures. Abri hesitated at the concerned look on Elora's face. What's wrong? I don't know if I can do this. I want to, but I don't want to hurt Stace. I'm not sure how he's going to take something like this. Well, a little late for that. I already sent the picture. Abri sighed, then rolled off Elora to lay next to her in the bed. Humans are pretty weird. I guess I was just too slow to get my hands on you. Elora's pad chimed, and she picked it up to look at it. There was a selfie of Stace. He had managed to get his right arm up out of its sling and a single upraised thumb matched his dumb, goofy grin. After another moment, it chimed again with another picture. Stace had taken a piece of paper and shakily written a message in English, then photographed it. I don't mind wherever you travel, as long as you come back home to me. Have fun and tell me all about it when you get back. Love you, Dash. Well, that settled that. Abri, keep your pad out. We've got more pictures to take. End of chapter. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss any episode and do all the other YouTube stuff. Visit and support the author, and I'll see you next time. If you didn't enjoy, comment on what I can do better. And as usual, have a wonderful day.